Wilson Reagan, twice governor of California, twice president of the United States, a man who has suffered from cancer. He has also been shot. He's 81 years old, and look at him.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Daughter Maureen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Paul, for that kind introduction. And Mr. Chairman, delegates, friends, fellow Americans, thank you so very much for that welcome. You've given Nancy and me so many wonderful memories, so much of your warmth and affection. We cannot thank you enough for the honor of your friendship. Over the years, I've addressed this convention as a private citizen, as a governor, as a presidential candidate, as a president. And now, once again, tonight, as private citizen Ronald Reagan. Tonight is a very special night for me. Of course, at my age, every night's a special night. After all, I was born in 1911. Indeed, according to the experts, I have exceeded my life expectancy by quite a few years. Now, this is a source of great annoyance to some, especially those in the Democratic Party. But here's the remarkable thing about being born in 1911. In my life's journey over these past 8 decades, I have seen the human race through a period of unparalleled tumult and triumph. I have seen the birth of communism and the death of communism. I have witnessed the bloody futility of 2 world wars and Korea, Vietnam, and the Persian Gulf. I have seen Germany united, divided, and united again. I have seen television grow from a parlor novelty to become the most powerful vehicle of communication in history. As a boy, I saw streets filled with Model Ts. As a man, I have met men who walked on the moon. I have not only seen but lived the marvels of what historians have called the American century. Yet tonight is not a time to look backward. For while I take inspiration from the past, like most Americans, I live for the future. So this evening, for just a few minutes, I hope you will let me talk about a country that is forever young. There was a time when empires were defined by land mass, subjugated peoples, and military might. But the United States is unique because we are an empire of ideals. For 200 years, we have been set apart by our faith in the ideals of democracy, of free men and free markets, and of the extraordinary possibilities that lie within seemingly ordinary men and women. We believe that no power of government is as formidable a force for good as the creativity and entrepreneurial drive of the American people. Those are the ideals that invented revolutionary technologies and a culture envied by people everywhere. This powerful sense of energy has made American synonymous for opportunity the world over. And after generations of struggle, America is the moral force that defeated communism. And all those who would put the human soul itself into bondage. Within a few short years, we Americans have experienced the most sweeping changes of this century: the fall of the Soviet Union and the rise of the global economy. No transition is without its problems, but as uncomfortable as it may feel at the moment, the changes of the 1990s will leave America more dynamic and less in danger than at any time in my life. A fellow... Thank you. All right. A fellow named James Allen once wrote in his diary, "Many thinking people believe America has seen its best days." He wrote that July 26, 1775. There are still those who believe America is weakening, that our glory was the brief flash of time called the 20th century, that ours was a burst of greatness too bright and brilliant to sustain, that America's purpose is past. My friends, I utterly reject those views. That's not the America we know. We were meant to be masters of destiny, not victims of fate. Who among us would trade America's future for that of any other country in the world? And who could possibly have so little faith in our American people that they would trade our tomorrow for our yesterday? I'll give you a hint. They put on quite a production in New York a few weeks ago. You might even call it slick. A stone's throw from Broadway it was, and how appropriate. Over and over, they told us they are not the party they were. They kept telling us with straight face that they're for family values. They're for a strong America. They're for less intrusive government. and they call me an actor. To hear them talk, you'd never know that the nightmare of nuclear annihilation has been lifted from our sleep. You'd never know that our standard of living remains the highest in the world. You'd never know that our air is cleaner than it was 20 years ago. You'd never know that we remain the one nation the rest of the world looks to for leadership. All right. All right, thank you. It wasn't... All right. It always, or wasn't always, this way. We mustn't forget, even if they would like to, the very different America that existed just 12 years ago. An America with 21% interest rates and back-to-back years of double-digit inflation. An America where mortgage payments doubled, paychecks plunged, and motorists sat in gas lines. An America whose leaders told us it was our own fault, that ours was a future of scarcity and sacrifice, and that what we really needed was another good dose of government control and higher taxes. It wasn't so long ago that the world was a far more dangerous place as well. It was a world where aggressive Soviet communism was on the rise and America's strength was in decline. It was a world where our children came of age under the threat of nuclear holocaust. It was a world where our leaders told us that standing up to aggressors was dangerous, that America might and determination were somehow obstacles to peace. But we stood tall and proclaimed that communism was destined for the ash heap of history. We never heard so much ridicule from our liberal friends. The only thing that got them more upset was two simple words: evil empire. But we knew then what the liberal Democrat leaders just couldn't figure out. The sky would not fall if America restored her strength and resolve. The sky would not fall if an American president spoke the truth. The only thing that would fall was the Berlin Wall. Speakers at that other convention saying we won the Cold War, and I couldn't help wondering just who exactly do they mean by we. All right, and to top it off, they even tried to portray themselves as sharing the same fundamental values of our party. But they truly don't understand the principles so eloquently stated by Abraham Lincoln. Quote, "You cannot strengthen the weak by weakening the strong. You cannot help the wage earner by pulling down the wage payer. You cannot help the poor by destroying the rich. You cannot help men permanently by doing for them what they could and should do for themselves." If we ever hear the Democrats quoting that passage by Lincoln and acting like they mean it, then, my friends, we will know that the opposition has really changed. Until then, when we see all that rhetorical smoke billowing out from the Democrats, well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd follow the example of their nominee. Don't inhale. But listen to me. This fellow they've nominated claims he's the new Thomas Jefferson. Well, let me tell you something. I knew Thomas Jefferson. He was a friend of mine, and Governor, you're no Thomas Jefferson. Let's not dismiss our current troubles, but where they see only problems, I see possibilities as vast and diverse as the American family itself. Even as we meet the rest of the world is astounded by the pundits and finger pointers who are so down on us as a nation. Well, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. America's best days are yet to come. Our proudest moments are yet to be. Our most glorious achievements are just ahead. America remains what Emerson called her 150 years ago, the country of tomorrow. What a wonderful description, and how true. And yet tomorrow might never have happened had we lacked the courage in the 1980s to chart a course of strength and honor. Oh. Yes. All right. All the more reason no one should underestimate the importance of this campaign and what the outcome will mean. The stakes are high. The presidency is serious business. We cannot afford to take a chance. We need a man of serious purpose, unmatched experience, knowledge, and ability. A man who understands government, who understands our country, and who understands the world. A man who has been at the table with Gorbachev and Yeltsin. A man whose performance as commander-in-chief of the bravest and most effective fighting force in history left the world in awe and the people of Kuwait free of foreign tyranny. Yes. 4 more years, a man who has devoted more than half his life to serving his country. A man of decency, integrity, and honor. And tonight, I come to tell you that I warmly, genuinely, wholeheartedly support the re-election of George Bush as President of the United States. Okay. All right. We know President Bush. By his own admission, he is a quiet man and not a showman. He is a trustworthy and level-headed leader who is respected around the world. His is a steady hand on the tiller through the choppy waters of the 90s, which is exactly what we need. We need George Bush. Yes, we need Bush. We also need another real fighter, a man who happens to be with us this evening, someone who has repeatedly stood up for his deepest convictions. We need our Vice President, Dan Quayle. Now, it's true, a lot of liberal Democrats are saying it's time for a change. And they're right. The only trouble is they're pointing to the wrong end of Pennsylvania Avenue. What we should change is a Democratic Congress that wastes precious time on partisan matters of absolutely no relevance to the needs of the average American. So to all the entrenched interests along the Potomac, the gavel-wielding chairman, the bloated staffs, the taxers and takers and congressional rule makers, we have a simple slogan for November 1992: clean house. full. Right. Yes. Yes. For you see, my fellow Republicans, we are the change. For 50 of the last 60 years, the Democrats have controlled the Senate, and they've had the House of Representatives for 56 of the last 60 years. It is time to clean house, to clean out the privileges and perks, clean out the arrogance and the big egos, clean out the scandals, the corner cutting and the foot dragging. What kind of job do you think they've done during all those years they've been running the Congress? You're absolutely right. You know, I used to say to some of those Democrats who chair every committee in the House, you need to balance the government's checkbook the same way you balance your own. Then I learned how they ran the House bank. And I realized that was exactly what they had been doing. Now just change what they would do if they controlled the executive branch too. This is the 21st presidential election in my lifetime, the 16th in which I will cast a ballot. Each of those elections had its shifting moods of the moment, its headlines of one day that were forgotten the next. There have been a few more twists and turns this year than in others, a little more shouting about who was up or down, in or out, as we went about selecting our candidates. But now we have arrived, as we always do, at the moment of truth, the serious business of selecting a president. Now is the time for choosing. As it did 12 years ago, and as we have seen many times in history, our country now stands at a crossroads. There is widespread doubt about our public institutions and profound concern not merely about the economy, but about the overall direction of this great country. And as they did then, the American people are clamoring for change and sweeping reform. The question we had to ask 12 years ago is the question we ask today. What kind of change can we Republicans offer the American people? Some might believe that the things we've talked about tonight are irrelevant to the choice. These new isolationists claim that the American people don't care about how or why we prevailed in the great defining struggle of our age, the victory of liberty over our adversaries. They insist that our triumph is yesterday's news, part of a past that holds no lessons for the future. Well, nothing could be more tragic after having come all this way on the journey of renewal we began 12 years ago. Then, if America herself forgot the lessons of individual liberty that she has taught to a grateful world. Emerson was right. We are the country of tomorrow. Our revolution did not end at Yorktown. More than 2 centuries later, America remains on a voyage of discovery, a land that has never become, but is always in the act of becoming. But just as we have led the crusade for democracy beyond our shores, we have a great task to do together in our own home. Now, I would appeal to you to invigorate democracy in your own neighborhoods. Whether we come from poverty or wealth, whether we are Afro-American or Irish-American, Christian or Jewish, from big cities or small towns, we are all equal in the eyes of God. But as Americans, that's not enough. We must be equal in the eyes of each other. We can no longer judge each other on the basis of what we are, but must instead start finding out who we are. In America, our origins matter less than our destinations, and that's what democracy is all about. A decade after we summoned America to a new beginning, we are beginning still. Every day brings fresh challenges and opportunities to match. With each sunrise, we are reminded that millions of our citizens have yet to share in the abundance of American prosperity. Many languish in neighborhoods riddled with drugs and bereft of hope. Still others hesitate to venture out on the streets for fear of criminal violence. Let us pledge ourselves to a new beginning for them. Let us apply our ingenuity and remarkable spirit to revolutionize education in America so that everyone among us will have the mental tools to build a better life. And while we do so, let's remember that the most profound education begins in the home. And let us harness the competitive energy that built America into rebuilding our inner cities so that real jobs can be created for those who live there and real hope can rise out of despair. Let us strengthen our health care system so that Americans of all ages can be secure in their futures without the fear of financial ruin. And my friends, once and for all, let us get control of the federal deficit through a balanced budget amendment. Yes, a budget amendment and a line item veto of the president. And let us all renew our commitment, renew our pledge to day by day, person by person, make our country and the world a better place to live. Then when the nations of the world turn to us and say, America, you are the model of freedom and prosperity, we can turn to them and say, you ain't seen nothing yet. For me, tonight is the latest chapter in a story that began a quarter of a century ago when the people of California entrusted me with the stewardship of their dreams. My fellow citizens, those of you here at this hall and those of you at home, I want you to know that I have always had the highest respect for you, for your common sense and intelligence, and for your decency. I have always believed in you and in what you could accomplish for yourselves and for others. And whatever else history may say about me when I'm gone, I hope it will record that I appealed to your best hopes, not your worst fears, to your confidence rather than your doubts. My dream is that you will travel the road ahead with liberty's lamp guiding your steps and opportunity's arm steadying your way. My fondest hope for each one of you, and especially for the young people here, That, yes. Yes. All right. Yes. Yes. And what this is, my hope is that you will love your country not for her power or wealth, but for her selflessness and idealism. May each of you have the heart to conceive, the understanding to direct, and the hand to execute works that will make the world a little better for your having been here. May all of you as Americans never forget your heroic origins, never fail to seek divine guidance, and never lose your natural God-given optimism. And finally, my fellow Americans, may every dawn be a great new beginning for America, and every evening bring us closer to that shining city upon a hill. Before I go, I would like to ask the person who has made my life's journey so meaningful, someone I have been so very proud of over the years, to join me. Nancy. My fellow Americans, on behalf of both of us,
ladies and gentlemen, the Honorable John Danforth of Missouri. It's time to meet the real Dan Quayle. You may not know him. I do. I've known him as a respected expert on national defense and compassionate author of the Job Training Partnership Act. I know his personal qualities, his energy and optimism, his commitment to his family and his country. It's an honor to introduce the Vice President to this convention. After watching the campaign against Dan Quayle these past 4 years, I jumped at the chance to set the record straight. It's time to tell the truth to the American people. The only thing more polluted than the campaign against Dan Quayle is the White River in Bill Clinton's Arkansas. The picture his critics have painted these past 4 years bears no resemblance, absolutely none, to the Dan Quayle I know. The real Dan Quayle is President Bush's trusted ally. He's the strongest supporter of America's leadership in science and space. He is the arch foe of excessive regulation by government's bureaucracy. The real Dan Quayle is America's best advocate for change of a legal system that wastes our time, wastes our money, and serves only the interests of the lawyers. The real Dan Quayle has the guts to stand before the lawyers of America and demand reform. Why does politics turn the stomachs of decent Americans? Because it's become so personal. If you can't win the contest of ideas, destroy a person. And the political left, the interest groups that control the Democratic Party, cannot win the contest of ideas. The real quarrel of the interest groups is not with Dan Quayle, the person. That's just a tactic. Their real quarrel is with his ideas. The Democratic Party and its interest groups are out of touch with the American people. They have been for years. So they hide their ideas. That's what their candidates do. That's why their convention was only vacuous platitudes and personal attacks. They called it a successful convention. Imagine a 53-minute acceptance speech that said nothing at all. Anyone who can speak for 53 minutes without saying a thing belongs in the Senate, not the White House. Republicans don't hide ideas. We debate them. Let's get on with the debate. Dan Quayle believes that America is the leader of the world, that we must have a national defense second to none, that we cannot turn in on ourselves toward isolationism and protectionism. Democrats do not agree. Let's get on with the debate. Dan Quayle believes that we must reduce the weight of government regulation on our people. Democrats do not agree. Let's get on with the debate. Dan Quayle believes that our legal system of product liability and medical malpractice is an injustice to the many and a bonanza for the few. Democrats do not agree. Let's get on with the debate. Dan Quayle believes that the families of America, poor as well as rich, should have the right to send their children to the schools of their choice. Democrats do not agree. Let's get on with the debate. Dan Quayle believes that the greatness of a nation depends not on the power of its government, but on the strength of its values. Democrats do not agree. Let's get on with the debate. Every 4 years, Americans get to decide the future of their country. This is the great privilege of citizenship. That privilege is diminished and cheapened when politics descends from a debate on the future to personal ridicule. In this campaign, there are real differences between the parties and between the candidates. The other party does not share our vision of what our country can become. We will debate those differences. We will win that debate. We will chart America's destiny to engage in and lead the world. We will win that debate. We will advance America's future in science and space. We will win that debate. We will insist on the need to lighten the heavy burden of government regulations. We will win that debate. We will demand reform of a legal system that now serves the lawyers more than it serves the people. We will win that debate. We will champion the right of all Americans to send their children to the school of their choice. We will win that debate. We will not debate personalities. We will debate ideas. We will uphold those ideas Dan Quayle has stood for throughout his public life. We will win that debate. We will win this election. We will re-elect our ticket. Delegates to this convention, our now and future Vice President, my friend, Dan Quayle.
Huntington, Indiana is probably the most perfect small town USA you could find. The values, the friendliness of the people back here are just really mean everything to us. It is something that all of us in our family will remember.
It was here on Polk Street where a young veteran and his wife raised their family. Jim Quayle named his firstborn son after James Danforth, a close friend killed in action during World War II.
When he was growing up, he was always in motion. He was perpetual motion. In fact, we have a movie of the skates where he'd fall down and get up, fall down, get up. And, but it's just determination, you know, and total concentration on what he was doing. And I've always remembered that because we would laugh, you know, we'd be in the house kind of laughing. Gosh, isn't he going to give up? But he didn't.
Dan and I met when we were both first in law school. We were in night law school, working during the day, and he was working for the governor, and I was working for the attorney general.
It's a rather interesting case that she was working on when we met. She was working on a capital punishment case for the attorney general.
So we literally met over the death penalty, which isn't very romantic.
It was very difficult to get a date with Marilyn at the very beginning.
He actually tried to fix me up with one of his friends.
She wasn't interested in him. And so after she turned him down...
A couple of days later, he asked me out, and 10 weeks later, we were married.
I was majority leader when Dan Quayle came to the Senate. He helped me become majority leader. Not many people remember maybe his service in the Senate, but I certainly do, because he was one of the brightest, one of the best in our new Republican majority. He was a quick study. He understood his specialty, which was military affairs by and large. And I came to rely on him for a lot of things and to trust his judgment.
One of the most important things to Dan is his children, and that's been proven from the very beginning of being involved in politics. Other people go out to parties and cocktail parties every night of the week. Dan had come home to his family and took an active part in their upbringing.
I have a wonderful family. God's been very good to me. I have a loving wife. We've been married almost 20 years. We're totally dedicated to each other. We've been blessed with 3 wonderful children. Tucker, 18 years old, going on to college. Benjamin, who's now the tallest in the family and darn proud of it. And, of course, Ren, she's 13, will be a freshman in high school.
He puts his children first because he knows that that's his legacy for the future. You have a political legacy, but you also have the people legacy, and that's what your children are.
Because moral values are what the American people care most about.
I'm not bashful about taking in Hollywood. I know they're powerful and they're influential. But I'm just asking them, do we have to have this much sex and this much violence on television and in the movies? I don't think so. And the American people would like to see them clean up their act. So would I.
And that's why I say this about the scorn of the media elite. I wear their scorn as a badge of honor.
If the principle is there and it's the right thing to do, he's going to fight to the bitter end to get things done. He's never been a quitter and never would be one.
I've taken a lot of pot shots. But as my grandfather always said, you stand up for what you believe in, you tell the truth, you work hard. I'll never quit, I'll never surrender, I'll never retreat. And I'll tell you this, we're going to win.
Mr. Chairman, delegates to this convention, and friends around America, with gratitude and a sense of mission, once again, I accept your nomination as Vice President of the United States. Tonight, I am stronger, more confident, and more determined than ever to re-elect our great President, George Bush. I know my critics wish I were not standing here tonight. They don't like our values. They look down on our beliefs. They're afraid of our ideas. And they know the American people stand on our side. And that's why when someone confronts them and challenges them, they will stop at nothing to destroy him. And I say to them, you have failed. I stand before you and before the American people, unbowed, unbroken, and ready to keep fighting for our beliefs. I come from Huntington, a small farming community in Indiana. I had an upbringing like many in my generation, a life built around family, public school, little league, basketball, and church on Sunday. My brother and I shared a room in our two-bedroom house, and we walked to school together. This was life in small-town America. Our people were strong, and we believed in the traditional values of Middle America. Merrill and I have tried to teach our children these values, like faith in God, love of family, and appreciation of freedom. We have also taught them about family issues like adoption, My parents adopted twins when I was 10 years old. We've taught our children to respect single parents and their challenges. Challenges that faced my grandmother many years ago and my own sister today. And we've taught our children about the tragedy of diseases like breast cancer, which took the life of Marilyn's mother. Marilyn and I have hosted an annual event called the Race for the Cure of Breast Cancer. 2 months ago, 20,000 runners, men and women, young and old, joined us in our nation's capital to race for the cure. By leading the battle against breast cancer in memory of her mother, Marilyn has taken a family tragedy and turned it into hope for others. Like so many Americans for me, family comes first. When family values are undermined, our country suffers. All too often, parents struggle to instill character in their sons and daughters, only to see their values belittled and their beliefs mocked by those who look down on America. Americans try to raise their children to understand right and wrong, only to be told that every so-called lifestyle alternative is morally equivalent. That is wrong. The gap between us and our opponents is a cultural divide. It is not just a difference between being conservative and liberal. It is a difference between fighting for what's right and refusing to see what's wrong. Families can also be strengthened by empowering our people with low taxes, home ownership, parental choice in education, job training, safe streets, a clean environment, and affordable health care. In all of these areas, we have a reform agenda, and it's time for Congress to get out of the way and to pass the president's plan. Speaking of reform, our legal system is spinning out of control. The explosion of frivolous lawsuits burdens our economy and weakens our system of justice. America has 5% of the world's population and 70% of the world's lawyers. Now, I have nothing against lawyers. At least most of them. I'm a lawyer, and I'm married to a lawyer. When we worked our way through night law school, Marilyn and I looked forward with pride to becoming part of the finest legal system in the world. But today, our country has a problem. Our legal system is costing consumers $300 billion a year. The litigation explosion has damaged our competitiveness. It has wiped out jobs. It has forced doctors to quit practicing in places where they're needed most. Every American knows the legal system is broken, and now is the time to fix it. The President's Council on Competitiveness, which I chair, will continue to lead the charge against unnecessary federal regulation. We've worked to save jobs and to save lives. We've reformed the drug approval process to speed up the availability of new medicines for people with life-threatening diseases like cystic fibrosis, cancer, and AIDS. And what is the response of the Democrats in Congress? They've tried to kill the Council on Competitiveness, which stands up for the American people and against the bureaucrats and against the special interests. They think the Competitiveness Council should go. They don't get it. It's time for them to go. You know, if the Democrats in Congress can't run their own restaurant, can't run their own post office, can't run their own bank, they sure can't be trusted to run our country. I hope everybody who watched the Democratic convention noticed how they hid their congressional leaders. You couldn't find them anywhere. Maybe it was a slick idea to keep those Democratic congressmen and senators under wraps. But on election day, they're going to learn a hard lesson. You can run from a TV camera. You can even run from your own delegates, but you can't hide from the voters of America. So again, there's only one thing to say about the spend everything, block everything, do nothing Democratic Congress. It's time for them to go. To change Congress for good. Almost 16 years ago, in my first speech as a member of the House of Representatives, I proposed limiting the terms of Congress. The Democratic Congress tell us that it's good for the country to limit Ronald Reagan and George Bush to 2 terms as president. I say to them, if it's good for the country to limit Ronald Reagan and George Bush to 2 terms, then it would be great for the country to limit the terms of Senators George Mitchell and Ted Kennedy and the rest of that liberal Democratic crowd down there in Washington. None of the reforms I've just mentioned has any support from Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton talks about change, but he can't really change America because the special interests won't let him. He can't say a word, not one single word, about legal reform because the trial lawyers won't let him. He can't support school choice for parents because the education lobby won't let him. And he will not join the majority of Americans in supporting term limits because the Democrat Congress won't let him. And he can't fight for the traditional family because his supporters in Hollywood and the media elite won't let him. My friends, Bill Clinton and the special interests will never run America because we won't let them. Now, speaking of the media, for more than a month, the media have been telling us that Bill Clinton and Al Gore are moderates. than I'm a world champion speller. We are the true voice for change, and we do not take our marching orders from the special interests. On behalf of legal reform and education reform, we've taken on the strongest forces of the status quo, and we will not back down. On behalf of deregulation and term limits, we've taken on the Democratic Congress, and we will not back down. And on behalf of family values, we've taken on Hollywood and the media elite, and we will not back down. It's been said and it's true that a leader gives his people character. And once again, America is going to choose a leader who has judgment, experience, and moral strength. 4 years ago, none of us knew that the Berlin Wall would fall, the Iron Curtain would be lifted, the Baltic nations would be free, communism would be dead and buried, the Soviet Union would cease to exist, and the threatening SS-18 ballistic missiles would be history. Nor did we know that we would be called upon to confront the aggression of a Middle East tyrant. But 4 years ago, we did know this. Whatever lay ahead, there was a clear choice to lead us. There was one man we could trust to guide our journey to a new century. And because we elected George Bush as our president, America is stronger and the world is safer.
To our country. He's a good man. Woo!
My friends, now listen to this. Now listen to this. In an attempt to establish credibility in foreign policy, Governor Clinton recently compared himself to former Governor Ronald Reagan. I know Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan is a friend of mine. And Bill Clinton, you're no Ronald Reagan. The Democratic nominee calls America the mockery of the world. But he and his running mate are the only ones that believe that. To Governor Clinton, I say this. America is the greatest nation in the world, and that's one thing you're not going to change. These last 4 years, I've worked with a man who represents so much of what's good in our country. A man whose public and personal life are the embodiment of character. Every day in that Oval Office, I see the dedication of a husband, father, and grandfather, the self-reliance of an entrepreneur, the courage of a Navy pilot, the dependability of a loyal friend, the compassion of a man of faith, and the wisdom of the man who married Barbara Bush. George Bush has given us great victories abroad and performed great deeds at home. But as Theodore Roosevelt said, the greatest victories are yet to be won, and the greatest deeds are yet to be done. We will go on fighting for the values, the hopes, and the dreams of our people. We will take this campaign to every American and to every state. We will win because of our principles, we will win because of our beliefs, and we will build an America more secure in the values of faith, family, and freedom. In these difficult times, America needs the very best in character, the best in leadership, and the best in judgment. And the very best is our nominee, our President, George Bush. Thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless America.
I just finished reading the latest Stephen King novel, a real horror story called The Democrat Platform. And I just left the president. He's really psyched up. I think he's going to eat the Democrats for dinner. In fact, when I left, he was snacking on broccoli. So, I'll tell you how psyched up he is. I just saw him playing horseshoes in the back, and the shoes were still on the horse. And I'm glad that President Bush has finally put on the gloves. And the Democrats are so worried. Bill Clinton just traded in his bus for Mike Dukakis' tank. I want to thank Gail Norton. I'm certain her parents, Dale and Jackie Norton, are listening in Wichita, and I want to thank the Kansas delegation and all my friends in Kansas. In just a few minutes, President Bush will stand before this podium and talk with the American people about where he will lead our nation in the next 4 years. But before he does, I want to share some thoughts about the president and about what is at stake in this election. I always tell it like it is, and I intend to do that tonight. Let me begin by acknowledging what we all know. We are the underdogs. The so-called experts have told us that President Bush can't win. To all those who think this election is over, I have 2 words for you. Think again. Think again. And get ready. And get ready. And get ready to meet the real comeback kid. Now, I've known this kid for 25 years. We've locked horns in tough competition. We've fought side by side to make America better. And in all this time, no matter what the fight, no matter what the odds, George Bush has always had the strength and the will to go the distance. Four years ago, they said he couldn't win the nomination. You're looking at someone who knows better. 4 years ago, they said he couldn't win the election. Michael Dukakis knows better. Two years ago, they said he couldn't unite the world in a fight for freedom. Now the bully of Baghdad knows better. And come November, the liberal from Little Rock will know better too. So President Bush, don't worry about the polls, because if the polls were always right, I'd be speaking next. George Bush has succeeded because he has remained true to the values which have guided him throughout his life. Love of family, love of country, love of freedom. And for George Bush, it started at the age 18 when he joined the Navy. Not because he thought it might look good on his resume if he ran for office one day, but because he knew then that America was worth fighting for, and America is worth fighting for. And while George Bush flew the skies of the Pacific, I walked the hills of Italy. But we both learned the same lessons. I learned the Air Force had it better than the infantry, but we also learned some other lessons. We learned that America is the world's beacon of freedom. We learned that the price of weakness is aggression. And we learned that our children and our grandchildren must never be drawn into war because America is weak. And President Bush brought those lessons with him to the Oval Office. And tonight we marvel at what has been accomplished. There is no evil empire. There is no Berlin Wall. There is no need to fear nuclear holocaust. Now, Governor Clinton and the leadership, the liberal leadership of the Democratic Party would have you believe that the avalanche of freedom sweeping the world is just pure luck. They just don't get it. 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 Now the bright, this, but they're going to get it. They're going to get it. The bright sunlight of democracy shines across the globe only because Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford and George Bush knew that strength was not the means of war, but the key to peace. That's what it's all about. And instead of thanking President Bush, Governor Clinton tells us now that all the heavy lifting is done. It's time to turn out the lights at the Pentagon. President Bush knows better. Americans know better. We know the world is still a dangerous place. We know there are dictators who seek to prey on neighbors and their nations. So the question you should ask yourself is this. When an anxious world turns to America for leadership, when the tough choice between peace and war faces our commander-in-chief, do you want an experienced world statesman or someone whose only foreign policy experience is playing the Vienna Waltz on his saxophone? Which do you want? My fellow Americans, it doesn't matter if Governor Clinton has absolutely no experience in foreign policy, but it would matter if he became president. It doesn't matter if Governor Clinton wants to gut our defense and endanger our national security and put millions of people out of work, but it would matter if he became commander-in-chief. So when it comes to foreign policy, our message is clear, Governor. Take the bus and leave the driving to us. While most Americans understand that President Bush has built a better world, they're more concerned with building a better America. And I'm here to tell you that President Bush shares your concern. There's already been a great deal accomplished. 43 million men and women with disabilities will have the same rights as other Americans, and I thank you, Mr. President, on behalf of all disabled Americans. We thank you. Working families now have tax credits to help offset the cost of child care. A civil rights bill which opens doors to all Americans is now the law of the land. More disadvantaged children than ever before are helped by the Head Start program. The air we breathe is cleaner, and drug use among young Americans has been drastically reduced. And because of President Bush and our remarkable First Lady, a new spirit of volunteerism and helping neighbor is alive and sweeping across America. So there we are. And President Bush's greatest frustration, and my greatest frustration as the Senate Republican leader, America's greatest frustration, is that the spirit of neighbor helping neighbor does not extend to Capitol Hill. In his inaugural address, if you recall 4 years ago, President Bush asked Congress for a new bipartisan spirit of cooperation. What he got was a poke in the eye. What he got was confrontation from the liberal Democrats. He asked for a plan that would revolutionize education, one that would give you the right to choose what schools your children would attend. The liberal Democrat Congress said no. He asked to give you the right for more affordable and more accessible health care. The liberal Democrat Congress said no. He asked for tough anti-crime legislation, which declared that the rights of law-abiding citizens were more important than the rights of criminals, and the liberal Democrat Congress said no. He sought to create more jobs in our inner cities with enterprise zones. The liberal Democrat Congress said no. He asked for a balanced budget amendment. The liberal Democrat Congress said no. He asked for a line item veto. The liberal Democrat Congress said no. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. The liberal Democrat Congress does know how to say yes. Yes to more spending. Yes to more taxes. Yes to more bureaucracy. Yes to more red tape. Yes to more mandates on small business, and the list goes on and on. President Reagan gave it to you straight the other night. For 56 of the past 60 years, the Democrats have controlled the House of Representatives. For 50 of the past 60 years, the Democrats have controlled the Senate. To paraphrase Winston Churchill, never before have so many done so little for so long. Can you imagine the outcry from the liberals and the media if Republicans had been in control for all those years? Can you imagine the outcry? So what do we do about it? Where do we go from here? Well, for openers, let's re-elect President George Bush. Then let's give him a Republican Congress. And then we'll roll up our sleeves and go to work together to solve America's problems. And you know what they are. You know what they are as well as I do. We're all concerned about the economy, the number one American problem. You're an unemployed factory worker, or a farmer, or a single parent trying to make ends meet. You hear Republicans blaming Democrats and Democrats blaming Republicans, but nothing gets done. Some of you were so frustrated you expressed your frustration by signing up with Ross Perot. But since he's not running, I plead with you to give the Republican Party and President Bush a chance. Give us a chance. Give us a chance. Because while both President Bush and his opponents say they share your commitment for change, there is one gigantic difference. President Bush believes that you should have the power to make change. President Bush trusts you. He wants you to have the power to start a business, to run it without government interference, to create jobs, to save and invest more of your money, to choose the schools that are best for your children, and the health care and job benefits that are best for you. President Bush wants you, the people, to make the decisions that are better for your community. Governor Clinton's philosophy is radically different. He firmly believes that bureaucrats know best and that those who live on the banks of the Potomac know best of all. Now, friends, it doesn't matter if Governor Clinton wants to raise your taxes to pay for his liberal agenda, but it would matter if he became president. It doesn't matter if Governor Clinton would take power away from you and give it to the feds, but it would matter if he became president. It doesn't matter if Governor Clinton would stifle individual initiative with red tape and regulations, but it would matter if he became president. So I repeat, Governor, take your bus and leave the driving to us. To my fellow Americans, there are 75 days left until the election. 75 days left until the election. 75 days to work harder than ever before because the stakes have never been higher. And when all the shouting is over, it all comes down to one word, and that word is trust. And I ask you, if we want a president who trusts the people, which candidate can the people trust? You got it right. If we want a commander-in-chief who will ensure that America will remain safe and secure, which candidate can we trust? If we want a president with the experience and respect to serve as a leader of the free world, which candidate can we trust? If we want a president who will nominate Supreme Court justices without first clearing them with Ted Kennedy, which candidate can you trust? And if we want a president who will be in our corner in the fight against all the big spending, high-taxing, red tape-loving liberal Democrats in Congress, which candidate can you trust? You got it right every time. My fellow Americans, will America's future be one of strength or weakness? Will America's future be one of progress or decline? Will America's future be one of greater individual freedom or bigger government? That's what this election is all about. That's what this election is all about. And by placing our trust in President Bush, we will meet the challenges of the future. Are you ready? Are you ready?
The American spirit is a flame, ignited by imagination, fueled by freedom, made eternal by the genius of its people. Through our best times and worst, the keepers of this flame have been our presidents. 40 different voices, all dedicated to one purpose, keeping the American spirit alive. Today, as a new dawn breaks over America, we face tough challenges and unprecedented opportunities. America needs a president who tackles the challenges head-on, a leader who embodies all the best qualities of the presidency, a leader we can all trust to keep the flame of the American spirit burning brightly. America needs the integrity of George Washington, a man who could have been king but wanted power to stay with the people.
I hope I shall always possess firmness and virtue enough to maintain what I consider the most enviable of all titles, the character of an honest man.
America needs the fairness of Thomas Jefferson, the author of the Declaration of Independence.
We hold these truths to be sacred and undeniable, that all men are created equal and independent.
America needs the courage of Abraham Lincoln, upon whose broad shoulders the burden fell to save the Union.
Those who deny freedom to others deserve it not for themselves,
and under a just God cannot long retain it.
America needs the grit of Teddy Roosevelt, bold as the new century. He loved the great outdoors and was committed to its preservation as we became a leading world power and an industrialized nation.
It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives, who spends himself in a worthy cause.
America needs the resolve of FDR, who would not allow us to falter in the face of tyrants or depression.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
America needs the wisdom of Dwight D. Eisenhower.
No easy problems ever come to the President of the United States. If they are easy to solve, someone else has solved them.
America needs the imagination of John F. Kennedy.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
Hello, Neil and Buzz.
America needs the determination of Richard Nixon.
What legacy shall we leave our children? Are they destined to die for the hatreds which have plagued the old world? Or are they destined to live because we had the vision to build a new world?
And America needs the leadership of Ronald Reagan.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Today, the wall is down. The Cold War is over. And because of America's leadership, more of the world enjoys the sweet taste of freedom than ever before. The special qualities found in the presidents who have advanced us so far, gotten us to reach so high, are the qualities we need for the next American century. Integrity, fairness, courage, grit, resolve, wisdom, imagination, determination, and leadership. A president who trusts the people. A president who fights for what we believe in. A president who is committed to helping us build a better America. A president who can lead America to the future we deserve. A president we can trust to be a keeper of the flame, the American spirit. George Bush. He is that man.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
is fantastic. Thank you all very, very much. Let's go to work. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I am proud to receive, and I'm honored to accept your nomination for President of the United States. And may I thank my dear friend and our great leader, Bob Dole, for that wonderful introduction. And let me say this nomination's not for me alone. It's for the ideas, principles, and values that we stand for. And my job has been made easier by a leader who's taken a lot of unfair criticism with grace and humor, the Vice President of the United States, Dan Quayle. And I am very grateful to him. I want to talk tonight about the sharp choice that I intend to offer Americans this fall. A choice between different agendas, different directions, and yes, a choice about the character of the man you want to lead this nation. I know that Americans have many questions about our economy, about our country's future, even questions about me. And I'll answer them tonight. And first, I feel great. And I'm heartened. I'm heartened by the polls, the ones that say I look better in my jogging shorts than the governor of Arkansas. Four years ago, I spoke about missions for my life and for our country. I spoke of one urgent mission: defending our security and promoting the American ideal abroad. Just pause for a moment to reflect on what we've done. Germany is united, and a slab of the Berlin Wall sits right outside this Astrodome. Arabs and Israelis now sit face to face and talk peace, and every hostage held in Lebanon is free. The conflict in El Salvador is over, and free elections brought democracy to Nicaragua. Black and white South Africans cheered each other at the Olympics. The Soviet Union can only be found in history books. The captive nations of Eastern Europe and the Baltics are captive no more. And today on the rural streets of Poland, merchants sell cans of air labeled "the last breath of communism." And if I had stood before you 4 years ago and described this as the world we would help to build, you would have said, "George Bush, you must have been smoking something and you must have inhaled." This convention is the first at which an American president can say, the Cold War is over and freedom finished first. Now some we have a lot to be proud of, a lot. Some want to rewrite history, want to skip over the struggle, claim the outcome was inevitable. And while the U.S. post-war strategy was largely bipartisan, the fact remains that the liberal McGovern wing of the other party, including my opponent, consistently made the wrong choices. And in the 70s, they wanted a hollow army. We wanted a strong fighting force. In the 80s, and you remember this one, in the 80s, they wanted a nuclear freeze, and we insisted on peace through strength. And from Angola to Central America, they said, let's negotiate, deliberate, procrastinate, and we said, just stand up for freedom. And now the Cold War is over, and they claim, hey, we were with you all the way. No, their behavior, really, their behavior reminds me of the old con man's advice to the new kid. He said, son, if you're being run out of town, just get out in front and make it look like a parade. Well, make no mistake, the demise of communism wasn't a sure thing. It took the strong leadership of presidents from both parties, including Republicans like Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford and Ronald Reagan. And without their vision and the support of the American people, the Soviet Union would be a strong superpower today, and we'd be facing a nuclear threat tonight. My opponents say I spend too much time on foreign policy, as if it didn't matter that school children once hid under their desks in drills to prepare for nuclear war. I saw the chance to rid our children's dreams of the nuclear nightmare, and I did. Over the past 4 years, more people have breathed the fresh air of freedom than in all of human history. I saw a chance to help, and I did. And these were the two defining opportunities, not of a year, not of a decade, but of an entire span of human history. I seized those opportunities for our kids and our grandkids, and I make no apologies for that. Now the Soviet bear may be gone, but there's still wolves in the woods. And we saw that when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. The Mideast might have become a nuclear powder keg, our energy supplies held hostage. So we did what was right and what was necessary. We destroyed a threat, freed a people, and locked a tyrant in the prison of his own country. Well, what about the leader of the Arkansas National Guard? The man who hopes to be commander-in-chief. Well, I bit the bullet, and he bit his nails. In 2 days, 2 days, listen to this now, 2 days after Congress followed my lead, my opponent said this, and I quote directly, "I guess I would have voted with the majority if it was a close vote, but I agree with the arguments the minority made." Now, sounds to me like his policy can be summed up by a road sign he's probably seen on his bus tour: slippery when wet. Look, this is serious business. Think about the impact of our foreign policy failures the last time the Democrats controlled both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue. Gas lines, grain embargoes, American hostages blindfolded. There will be more foreign policy challenges like Kuwait in the next 4 years. Terrorists and aggressors to stand up to. Dangerous weapons to be controlled and destroyed, and freedom's fight is not finished. And I look forward to being the first president to visit a free, democratic Cuba. Who will lead the world? Who will lead the world in the face of these challenges? Not my opponent. In his acceptance speech, he devoted just 65 seconds to telling us about the world. And then he said that America was, and I quote again, I want to be fair and factual, I quote, being ridiculed everywhere. Well, tell that to the people around the world for whom America is still a dream. Tell that to the leaders around the world from whom America commands respect. Ridiculed, tell that to the men and women of Desert Storm. make an aside comment here, because what you've been reading in the paper. This is a political year, but there's a lot of danger in the world, and you can be sure I will never let politics interfere with a foreign policy decision. Forget the election. I will do what is right for the national security of the United States of America, and that is a pledge from my heart. Fifty years ago this summer, I was 18 years of age. I see some young people in the audience tonight, and I remember how I felt in those days. And I believe deeply in this country, and we were faced with the World War, and so I made a decision to go off and fight a battle much different from political battles. And I was scared, but I was willing. I was young, but I was ready. I had barely lived when I began to watch men die. I began to see the special place of America in the world. And I began to see, even then, that the world would become a much smaller place, and faraway places could become more and more like America. And 50 years later, after change of almost biblical proportions, we know that when freedom grows, America grows. And just as a strong America means a safer world, we have learned that a safer world means a stronger America. This election is about change, but that's not unusual, because the American Revolution is never ending. Today, the pace of change is accelerating. We face new opportunities and new challenges, and the question is, who do you trust to make change work for you? My opponent says America is a nation in decline. Of our economy, he says we are somewhere on the list beneath Germany, heading south towards Sri Lanka. Well, don't let anyone tell you that America is second-rate, especially somebody running for president. Maybe he hasn't heard. Maybe he hasn't heard that we are still the world's largest economy. No other nation sells more outside its borders. The Germans, the British, the Japanese can't touch the productivity of you, the American worker and the American farmer. My opponent won't mention that. He won't remind you that interest rates are the lowest they've been in 20 years, and millions of Americans have refinanced their homes. And you just won't hear that inflation, the thief of the middle class, has been locked in a maximum security prison. And you don't hear much about this good news, because the media also tends to focus only on the bad. And when the Berlin Wall fell, I half expected to see a headline: Wall falls, 3 border guards lose jobs. And underneath it probably says Clinton blames Bush. You don't hear a lot about progress in America, so let me tell you about some good things we've done together. Just 2 weeks ago, all three nations of North America agreed to trade freely from Manitoba to Mexico. And this will bring good jobs to Main Street, USA. We passed the Americans with Disabilities Act, bringing 43 million people into the economic mainstream. And I must say it's about time. Our children will breathe easier because of our new Clean Air Pact. We are rebuilding our roads, providing jobs for more than 500,000 Americans. And we passed a child care law. And we took a stand for family values by saying that when it comes to raising children, government doesn't know best, parents know best. I have fought against prejudice and anti-Semitism all my life, and I am proud that we strengthened our civil rights laws, and we did it without resorting to quotas. And one more thing of vital importance to all. Today, cocaine use has fallen by 60% among young people. To the teenagers, the parents, and the volunteers who are helping us battle the scourge of drugs in America, we say thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Do I want to do more? You bet. Nothing hurts me more than to meet with soldiers home from the Persian Gulf who can't find a job, or workers who have a job but worried that the next day will bring a pink slip. And what about parents who scrape and struggle to send their kids to college only to find them back living at home because they can't get work? The world is in transition, and we are feeling that transition in our homes. The defining challenge of the 90s is to win the economic competition, to win the peace. We must be a military superpower, an economic superpower, and an export superpower. In this election, you'll hear two versions of how to do this. Theirs is to look inward and protect what we already have. Ours is to look forward, to open new markets, prepare our people to compete, to restore our social fabric, to save and invest so we can win. We believe that now that the world looks more like America, it's time for America to look more like herself. And so we offer a philosophy that puts faith in the individual, not the bureaucracy, a philosophy that empowers people to do their best so America can be at its best. In a world that is safer and freer, this is how we will build an America that is stronger, safer, and more secure. We start with a simple fact. Government is too big and spends too much. And I have asked Congress to put a lid on mandatory spending except Social Security, and I've proposed doing away with over 200 programs and 4,000 wasteful projects, and to freeze all other spending. The gridlocked Democrat Congress said no. So beginning tonight, I will enforce the spending freeze on my own, and if Congress sends me a bill spending more than I asked for in my budget, I will veto it fast. Veto it fast. Faster than copies of Millie's book sold. Now, Congress won't cut spending, but refuses to give the president the power to eliminate pork barrel projects that waste your money. 43 governors have that power. So I ask you, the American people, give me a Congress that will give me the line item veto. Let me tell you about a recent battle fought with the Congress, a battle in which I was aided by Bob Michael and his troops and Bob Dole and his. This spring, I worked day and night to get 2/3 of the House members to approve a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. We almost had it, but we lost by just 9 votes. Now listen how. Just before the vote, the liberal leaders of the Congress convinced 12 members who co-sponsored the bill to switch sides and vote no. Keep in mind, they voted against a bill they had already put their names on. Something fishy is going on. And look at my opponent on this issue. Look at my opponent. He says he's for a balanced budget, but he came out against the amendment. He's like that on a lot of issues. First on one side, then the other. He's been spotted in more places than Elvis Presley. After all these years, Congress has become pretty creative at finding ways to waste your money. So we need to be just as creative at finding ways to stop them. And I have a brand new idea. Taxpayers should be given the right to check a box on their tax returns so that up to 10% of their payments can go for one purpose alone, to reduce the national debt. But we also need to make sure, we need to make sure that Congress doesn't just turn around and borrow more money to spend more money. And so I will require that for every tax dollar set aside to cut the debt, the ceilings on spending will be cut by an equal amount. And that way we will cut both debt and spending and take a whack out of the budget deficit. My feelings about big government come from my experience. I spent half my adult life in the private sector. My opponent has a different experience. He's been in government nearly all his life. His passion to expand government knows no bounds. And he's already proposed, and listen to this carefully, he has already proposed $220 billion in new spending, along with the biggest tax increase in history, $150 billion, and that's just the start. He says he wants to tax the rich, but folks, he defines rich as anyone who has a job. And you've heard of the separations of powers? Well, my opponent practices a different theory, the power of separations. Government has the power to separate you from your wallet. Now, let me say this. When it comes to taxes, I've learned the hard way. There's an old saying, good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. 2 years ago, I made a bad call on the Democrats' tax increase. I underestimated Congress's addiction to taxes, and with my back against the wall, I agreed to a hard bargain. One tax increase, one time, in return for the toughest spending limits ever. Well, it was a mistake to go along with the Democratic tax increase. And I admit it, but here's the question for the American people. Who do you trust in this election? The candidate who's raised taxes one time and regrets it, or the other candidate who raised taxes and fees 128 times and enjoyed it every time? When the new Congress convenes next January, I'll propose to further reduce taxes across the board, provided we pay for these cuts with specific spending reductions that I consider appropriate so that we do not increase the deficit. I will also continue to fight to increase the personal exemption and to create jobs by winning a cut in capital gains taxes. That will especially help small businesses. You know, small businesses create 2/3 of the new jobs in America. But my opponent's plan for small business is clear, present, and dangerous. Beside new income taxes, his plan will lead to a new payroll tax to pay for a government takeover of health care, and another new tax to pay for training. And that is just the beginning. And if he gets his way, hardware stores all across America will have a new sign up, closed for despair. And I guess you'd say his plan really is Elvis economics. America will be checking in to the Heartbreak Hotel. I believe that small business needs relief from taxation, regulation, and litigation. And thus, I will extend for 1 year the freeze on paperwork and unnecessary federal regulation that I imposed last winter. There is no reason that federal regulations should live longer than my friend George Burns. And I will issue an order to get rid of any rule whose time has come and gone. And I see something happening in our towns and in our neighborhoods. Sharp lawyers are running wild. Doctors are afraid to practice medicine, and some moms and pops won't even coach Little League anymore. We must sue each other less and care for each other more. Fighting to reform our legal system to put an end to crazy lawsuits, and if that means climbing into the ring with the trial lawyers, well, let me just say, round one starts tonight. After all, my opponent's campaign is being backed by practically every trial lawyer who ever wore a tasseled loafer. He's not in the ring with him, he's in the tank. There are other things we need to do to get our economy up to speed, prepare our kids for the next century. We must have new incentives for research and new training for workers. Small businesses need capital and credit, and defense workers need new jobs. And I have a plan to provide affordable health care for every American, controlling costs by cutting paperwork and lawsuits, and expanding coverage to the poorest of the poor. We do not need my opponent's plan for a massive government takeover of health care, which would ration care and deny you the right to choose a doctor. Who wants health care? Who wants health care with a system with the efficiency of the House Post Office and the compassion of the KGB? What about our schools? What about our schools? My opponent and I both want to change the way our kids learn. He wants to change our schools a little bit, and I want to change them a lot. Take the issue of whether parents should be able to choose the best school for their kids. My opponent says that's okay as long as the school is run by government, and I say every parent and child should have a real choice of schools, public, private, or religious. So we have a clear choice to fix our problems. Do we turn to the tattered blanket of bureaucracy that other nations are tossing away? Or do we give our people the freedom and incentives to build security for themselves? Here's what I'm fighting for. Open markets for American products, lower government spending, tax relief, opportunities for small business, legal and health reform, job training, and new schools built on competition ready for the 21st century. Now, okay, why are these proposals not in effect today? Only one reason: the gridlock Democratic Congress. A very good idea. A very good idea. Now, I know Americans are tired of the blame game, tired of people in Washington acting like they're candidates for the next episode of American Gladiators. I don't like it either. Neither should you. But the truth is the truth. Our policies have not failed. They haven't even been tried. Americans want jobs, and on January 28th, I put before Congress a plan to create jobs. And if it had been passed back then, 500,000 more Americans would be at work right now. But in a nation that demands action, Congress has become the master of inaction. And it wasn't always this way. I heard President Ford tonight. I served in Congress 22 years ago under him. And back then we cooperated. We didn't get personal. We put the people above everything else. Heck, we didn't even own blow dryers back in those days. At my first inauguration, I said that people didn't send us to bicker. I extended my hand, and I think the American people know this. I extended my hand to the congressional leaders, the Democratic leaders, and they bit it. And the House leadership has not changed in 38 years. It is a body caught in a hopelessly tangled web of PACs, perks, privileges, partnership, and paralysis. Every day, Congress puts politics ahead of principle and above progress. Now, let me give you just one example. February 20th, 1991. It was at the height of the Gulf War. On that very same day, I asked American pilots to risk their lives to fly missions over Baghdad. And I also wanted to strengthen our economic security for the future. So that very same day, I introduced a new domestic energy strategy which would cut our dependence on foreign oil by 7 million barrels a day. And how many days did it take to win the Gulf War? 43. And how many did it take Congress to pass a national energy strategy? 532, and still counting. I have ridden stationary bikes that can move faster than the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate, controlled by the Democrat leadership. Okay? All right? You wait. fixing to. Where does my opponent stand with Congress? Well, up in New York at their convention, they kept the congressional leaders away from the podium, hid them away. They didn't want America to hear from the people who really make the decisions, and they hid them for a very good reason, because the American people would recognize a dangerous combination, a rubber-check Congress and a rubber-stamp president. Governor Clinton and Congress know that you've caught on to their lingo. They know when they say spending, you say, uh-oh. So now they have a new word, investment. They want to invest $220 billion more of your money, but I want you to keep it. Governor Clinton and Congress want to put through the largest tax increase in history, but I will not let that happen. And Governor Clinton and Congress don't want kids to have the option of praying in school, but I do. Clinton and Congress don't want to close legal loopholes and keep criminals behind bars, but I will. Clinton and Congress will stack the judiciary with liberal judges who write laws they can't get approved by the voters. Governor Clinton even says Mario Cuomo belongs on the Supreme Court. Wait a minute, though. No, wait. Maybe not a bad idea. If you believe in judicial restraint, you probably ought to be happy. After all, the good governor of New York can't make up his mind between chocolate and vanilla at Baskin-Robbins. He's there. We won't have another court decision for 35 years. And maybe that's all right, too. Are my opponent and Congress really in cahoots? Look at one important question. Should we limit the terms of Congress? Governor Clinton says no, Congress says no, and I say yes. We tried this. Look, we tried this once before, combining the Democratic governor of a small southern state with a very liberal vice president and a Democratic Congress. America does not need Carter II. We do not want to take America back to those days of malaise, but Americans want to know, where's proof that we will have better days in Washington? I'll give you 150 reasons, and that's how many members of Congress are expected to leave Washington this year. Some are tainted by scandal. The voters have bounced them the way they bounce their own checks. But others are good members, Republican and Democrat, and they agree with me. The place just doesn't work anymore. 150 new members from both parties will be coming to Washington this fall, and every one will have a fresh view of America's future. And I pledge today to the American people, immediately after this election, I will meet with every one of these members before they get attacked by the PACs, overwhelmed by their staffs, and cornered by some camera crew. And I will lay out my case for change. Change that matters, real change that makes a difference. Change that is right for America. You see, there's a yearning in America, a feeling that maybe it's time to get back to our roots. Sure, we must change, but some values are timeless. I believe in families that stick together, fathers who stick around, and I happen to believe very deeply in the worth of each individual human being, born or unborn. And I believe I believe in teaching our kids the difference between what's wrong and what's right, teaching them respect for hard work and to love their neighbors. And I believe that America will always have a special place in God's heart, as long as he has a special place in ours. And maybe that's why I've always believed that patriotism is not just another point of view. There are times in every young person's life when God introduces you to yourself. And I remember such a time. It was back many years ago when I stood watch at 4 a.m. up on the bridge of a submarine, the United States Finback, USS Finback. And I would stand there and look out at the blackness of the sky, broken only by the sparkling stars above. And I would think about friends I lost, a country I loved, and about a girl named Barbara. And I remember those nights as clearly as any in my life. You know, you can see things from up there that other people don't see. You can see storm clouds rise and then disappear, the first hint of the sun over the horizon, and the first outline of the shore far away. And now I know that Americans are uneasy today. There's anxious talk around our kitchen tables. But from where I stand, I see not America's sunset, but a sunrise. And the world's changes for which we've sacrificed for a generation have finally come to pass. And with them, a rare and unprecedented opportunity to pass the sweet cup of prosperity around our American table. And are we up to it? I know we are. As I travel our land, I meet veterans who once worked the turrets of a tank and can now master the keyboards of high-tech economy. I see teachers blessed with the incredible American capacity for innovation who are teaching our children a new way to learn for a new century. And I meet parents, some working 2 jobs with hectic schedules, who still find new ways to teach old values to steady their kids in a turbulent world. And I take heart from what is happening in America, not from those who profess a new passion for government, but from those with an old and enduring faith in the human potential, those who understand that the genius of America is our capacity for rebirth and renewal. America is the land where the sun is always peeking over the horizon. And tonight, I appeal to that unyielding, undying, undeniable American spirit. I ask you to consider, now that the entire world is moving our way, why would we want to go back their way? I ask not just for your support for my agenda, but for your commitment to renew and rebuild our nation by shaking up one institution that has withstood change for over 4 decades. Join me in rolling away the roadblock Join me in rolling away the roadblock at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue so that the next 4 years we will match our accomplishments outside by building a stronger, safer, more secure America inside. 44 years ago, in another age of uncertainty, a different president embarked on a similar mission. His name was Harry S. Truman. And as he stood before his party to accept their nomination, Harry Truman knew the freedom I know this evening. The freedom to talk about what's right for America and let the chips fall where they may. Harry Truman said this: "This is more than a political call to arms. Give me your help, not to win votes alone, but to win this new crusade and keep America safe and secure for its own people." Well, tonight I say to you, join me in our new crusade to reap the rewards of our global victory, to win the peace so that we may make America safer and stronger for all our people. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Let's welcome again Larry, Steve, and Rudy, the Gatlin brothers.
The 2000 education reform bill there. This was formed by the 50 governors. But because the Democrats are playing politics, they're not going to vote on it. This would revolutionize our school system. He's had a health care program. Heaven only knows America needs a strong health care program. We have one. We've got a crime package. The Congress refuses to act. Now, much as I love Johnny Chafee, he can't deny that. They have not moved on any of it.
The president told Jim Lehrer in an interview earlier today that there were going to be a lot of changes, new people, new faces in his administration, including in the cabinet. I don't think he was referring to that, but has he talked to you about people he wants to change in a second term?
No, he has not. I've heard discussion, but we haven't named names.
Will there be a wholesale turnover, do you think?
Ask the president. If he told Jim Lehrer, I guess that's true.
I want to ask you...
I'm not a co-president.
The polls have said over and over again, Barbara Bush is the most popular Republican in the country. I want to ask you...
Let's be honest. They don't say Republican.
popular person in the country.
I mean, let's be honest. No, that's not true.
But I want to ask you about some of the statements that have been made here at this convention over the last few days, starting with this one. Republican Party...
You weren't going to ask all these same old questions.
Well, now, these questions you've never heard before.
All right.
Party Chairman Rich Bond saying the views of the Republicans are America. Democrats' views are not America.
That's what Rich Bond thinks, I guess.
Well, do you think that? Do you think there's a patriotism that exists among Republicans?
Do I question or judge someone else's patriotism? No.
So is he wrong when he says
No, I think he's making political rhetoric. But wait a minute. Were you at the Democrat convention? I didn't hear you asking those questions there. And we were bashed beyond belief.
Well, I didn't hear a Democrat say that you're not American.
You didn't listen.
Republican.
You should have heard what they said about Republicans and George Bush. They were absolutely vicious. And nobody called it a dirty attack. So I'm not going to apologize for Rich Bond.
Campaign official Charles Black and Pat Buchanan have both said in the last 24 hours those who favor rights for homosexuals have no place in the Republican Party.
I don't believe that's true. We're an inclusive party. And I don't judge people. And I'm not fighting with them either. I'm telling you, you asked me what I think.
And that is
I
what
think we're an inclusive party. We're not an exclusive party.
Well, are you pleased to have that message going out over television?
I'm not sending that message. I'm saying we want you.
U.S. Treasurer Mrs. Villapando, who just said yesterday, she joked.
Let's bring up some good things that are happening.
Who joked that Governor Clinton is a skirt chaser.
She joked?
Well,
I don't think that's very funny. Well, you speak to her. I've seen her around here tonight. You ask her. I don't say that.
Does that have a place in this campaign?
I can only speak for one person, me. And I think I can speak for George Bush on that, too. He's not going to attack personally. But we can't speak for everybody on what they say or don't say.
And one other former Commerce Secretary and campaign
you're
chairman,
saying
Robert
nothing
Mosbacher,
nice. Where were you during the Democrat convention defending us?
Hopefully asking some fair questions of Democrats.
You were not. Come on.
But Mosbacher, who said again in the last day or so that Governor Clinton's alleged marital infidelity is a legitimate campaign issue.
Well, maybe it is to Bob Mosbacher, and it might be to a lot of other Americans. Who knows? I mean, I can't speak to that either. I am not judgmental, and I'm not going to talk about things like that.
I ask you these things partly because these and other kinds of things keep coming up. You and the president have both said emphatically there's no place in the campaign for this, and yet people keep bringing them up.
You didn't listen to the Democrat convention, I think, and you didn't listen to the rumors that the Democrats are spreading about us. I mean, attacking our boys, attacking my husband. I'm not sure you've been at the same political year I've been to, Judy. Now, come on, be fair.
I'll try to be, Mrs. Bush. Thank you for the advice. And
thank you for the interview, are you saying?
No, I'm not. Let me just ask you this other thing. You criticized Rich Bond last week when
I apologize to him. Do you know that?
I did not.
I'll tell you why I did. Because I really haven't followed the other campaign very much, to tell you the honest truth. I have a great candidate and someone who I'm talking about the issues and why I think people should vote for him. I didn't realize that both the governor and Mrs. Clinton had both said that they were going to be a co-presidency and vote for him and you get me for free. That makes it quite different, Judy. So if you have had public statements and written public opinions, then people, I think, probably should look at them. If it's going to be a co-presidency, fine.
So, but just quickly, you told him it was wrong to criticize Hillary Clinton.
I didn't tell him. I told the press when they asked me. I then apologized to Rich.
And then last night when Pat Buchanan criticized Mrs. Clinton, you stood up and applauded. And I'm just asking you, which is it?
No, I didn't.
I saw it on television, Mrs.
No, I didn't applaud that. I applauded other things. He said not that. He said many other things. But when you're a co-president, that makes a big difference, Judy. I mean, if you vote for one, you get both. That's what they have said. I didn't know they'd said that. I really didn't.
Well, Mrs. Bush, we thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Sandy Patty is the singer who is going to rise up singing God bless America.
While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us pledge allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful. As we lift our voices in this solemn God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairie, to the ocean wide with God bless America, my home, sweet home. God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to
And now all the members of the extraordinary cycle. Fireworks from all around the podium.
The flag has fallen behind.
The flag has fallen behind. All members of the president's family, down to his grandchildren, who we saw last night, and the Quayle's family there, back on the podium.
The convention managers were concerned, obviously, about the fireworks. They had said this kind of thing had never been tried before, to coordinate it all, and apparently they pulled it off. It was a very spectacular show.
Fifth Republican National Convention in session, and call it to order. Who knows best how to lead America? Who's made America the sole remaining superpower in the world? Who, along with Ronald Reagan, put communism on the ash heap of history?
I do believe, deep in my heart,
that the right place for us to be now in this presidential campaign is right beside George Bush.
What a proud moment it is for me to stand here to introduce to you the 40th President of the United States, Ronald Reagan.
He is a trustworthy and level-headed leader who is respected around the world. His is a steady hand on the tiller through the choppy waters of the 90s, which is exactly what we need. We need George Bush. Yes. Yes.
By the year 2000, all children in America will start school ready to learn.
Goal 2. The high school graduation rate will increase to at least 90%. Goal 6. By the year 2000, every school in America will be safe, disciplined, and drug-free.
USA, you're my country, you're the land that I call home.
There are also issues where we do not agree. I happen to think that individual freedom should extend to a woman's right to choose. I want the government out of your pocketbook and your bedroom.
We've got a great quarterback in George Bush. You bet. Clean it out. We need a Republican Congress. And Mr. President, give them hell Thursday night.
It was Ronald Reagan who put the Kremlin in the crosshairs, but it was George Bush who pulled the trigger.
Pictures of a people proud and free. I'll keep holding to the dream. You're still what living means to me.
A year ago, Mary Fisher discovered she is HIV positive. After agonizing family deliberations, she told the public her story.
To my children, I make this pledge. I will not give in, Zachary, because I draw my courage from you. Your silly giggle gives me hope. Your gentle prayers give me strength. And you, my child, give me the reason to say to America, you are at risk.
I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day.
With Dan Quayle at his side, our president will continue to steer a steady course for this nation and will lead this world to a brighter tomorrow.
Tonight, you will nominate George Bush to lead our nation into its future. You have made a superb choice. Thank you, and God bless you. I love you, too.
Viva Bush.
Our children
children, our grandchildren to come will go to bed in peace and not wake up hearing nuclear war. Are we better off for that than 4 years ago? Of course we are. I nominate for President of the United States, George Bush. Delegates, are you ready?
The great state of Texas proudly cast our 121 votes for the best president that has ever served this country, George Bush.
The games of the 25th Olympiad reminded us of what is right about America's young people. They did us proud. They brought home the gold.
Years ago, I answered the taunting Democrat question, where was George? That November, the voters sent George to the White House. Suddenly, astonishingly, and most peacefully, the world we knew began to change.
After watching the campaign against Dan Quayle these past 4 years, I jumped at the chance to set the record straight. The only thing more polluted than the campaign against Dan Quayle is the White River in Bill Clinton's Arkansas.
I know my critics wish I were not standing here tonight. They don't like our values. They look down on our beliefs. They're afraid of our ideas, and they know the American people stand on our side. I stand before you and before the American people, unbowed, unbroken, and ready to keep fighting for our beliefs.
If we want a president with the experience and respect to serve as a leader of the free world, which candidate can we trust? And if we want a president who will be in our corner in the fight against all the big spending, high taxing, red tape loving liberal Democrats in Congress, which candidate can you trust? Thank you all.
The world is in transition, and we are feeling that transition in our homes. The defining challenge of the 90s is to win the economic competition, to win the peace. We must be a military superpower, an economic superpower, and an export superpower. In this election, you'll hear two versions of how to do this. Theirs is to look inward and protect what we already have. Ours is to look forward, to open new markets, prepare our people to compete, to restore our social fabric, to save and invest so we can win.